Schoolers and eighth graders that are here that made it back from Florida. So a lot of you guys are here for the first time. Most of these guys are from St. John's youth group, and unfortunately a lot of kids are still in Florida for spring break, but these are the ones that made their trek back. So please just enjoy the morning, and we'll talk a little bit later.
Say for certain, maybe you're still here. I feel you all around me, your memory so clear. Deep in the stillness, I can hear you speak. You're still an inspiration. Can it be that you are mine forever, love, and you are watching over me from up above? Fly me up to where you are beyond the distant star. I wish upon tonight to see you smile, if only for a while to know you're there. A breath away is not far to where you are. Are you gently sleeping here inside my dream? And isn't faith believing all power can't be seen? As my heart holds you just one beat away, I cherish all you gave me every day. 'Cause you are mine forever, love, watching me from above. And I believe that angels breathe, and that love will live on and never leave. Fly me up to where you are beyond the distant star. I wish upon tonight to see you smile, if only for a while to know you're there. A breath away is not far to where you are. I know you're there. A breath away is not far to where you are.
The first station. Jesus prays in the Garden of Olives. Then they came to a place named Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took with him Peter, James, and John, and began to be troubled and distressed. Then he said to him, "My soul is sorrowful even to death. Remain here and keep watch." He advanced a little and fell to the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass by him. He said, Abba, Father, all things are possible to you. Take this cup away from me, but not what I will, but what you will.
It was a pitch-black night, a night in which even the stars hid themselves. James, John, and I had accompanied Jesus many times. Once on a mountaintop, we saw Jesus bright as a torch, shining in glory. I could have stayed on that mountain forever, happy to build a shrine there. But no. Jesus set his face towards Jerusalem. James is always telling me that I am so impetuous. I speak without thinking. Why didn't I listen to him? Yes, I opened my mouth when I felt my master was in danger. Wouldn't you have done the same? At Philippi, I took him aside and told him not to go to Jerusalem because there he'd face hostile leaders. Then Jesus said something to me that was like a slap in the face. Get behind me, Satan. Satan, I deserve that because I didn't understand that the cross was the way to the new life. Not just for Jesus, but for all of us. But back to that Thursday night in the garden. I'm ashamed to say that we weren't much company for the Master that night. I heard the sighs and the groans of Jesus as he prayed alone in the garden. He told us to keep awake, but our eyelids were too heavy. Yes, the wine made us sleepy, but even more, our hearts felt burdened with sorrow. At our last supper together, I boasted that although everyone else would desert him, I would never fail him. But I did fail him. I did.
The second station. Jesus is betrayed by Judas and arrested. Then, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, accompanied by a crowd with swords and clubs who had come from the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. He came and immediately went over to him and said, "Rabbi," and he kissed him. At this, they laid their hands on him and arrested him.
I know you all want to ask the question, Judas, how could you have betrayed the Master with a kiss? But you have to understand, the dream of the Messiah and the kingdom was all but dead. How was Jesus going to unite our people against the Romans if he continued to create division? Breaking the Sabbath and insulting our leaders, Jesus had become a hopeless idealist, turned the other cheek indeed. How could any Jew dare say, "Give Caesar what belongs to Caesar"? No, the dream was dead. Jesus had no intention of conquering the Romans. Instead of collecting money to build an army, this dreamer gave it away to the poor. Yes, I took from the common purse. I want my share. What's fair is fair. Wouldn't you agree? There wasn't going to be any rich kingdom. Oh, I saw his power. The power over the demons and the sick, and even death. When I turned him over to the soldiers that night in the garden, I thought I forced him to use his power against the Romans. I was sure he escaped like he did in Nazareth, when he magically made his way through the mob, determined to kill him. I can't say I ever hated the Master. I simply became disillusioned, bitterly disillusioned. I became a tragic blunder in betraying Jesus, and I paid for it. I regret that kiss, but it's too late. Too late.
The third station. Jesus is condemned by the Sanhedrin. The chief priests and the entire Sanhedrin kept trying to obtain testimony against Jesus in order to put him to death, but they found none. The high priest rose before the assembly and questioned Jesus, saying, "Have you no answer? What are these men testifying against you?" But he was silent and answered nothing. Again, the high priest asked him and said to him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" Then Jesus answered, "I am. And you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power and coming with the clouds of heaven." They all condemned him as deserving to die.
Annas, my father-in-law, sent Jesus to me with clear instructions. Caiaphas, you know what you must do. He's a dangerous man. That crafty old fox Annas had spies watching Jesus for months. Finally, they gathered enough evidence to arrest him and send him to me for a trial. What caught the attention of Annas and myself, of course, was his arrogance. The arrogance to drive the money changers out of the temple, the arrogance to allow the people to shout, "Son of David," when he entered Jerusalem. Then finally came the rumors that he claimed to be the Messiah. After questioning his disciple Judas, we decided to arrest Jesus secretly at night, away from the crowds. If we didn't act soon, this so-called Messiah could incite a revolution and bring the Roman army crashing down upon us. No, it's better, far better, that one man die than the nation be destroyed. Then came the trial. The witnesses were confused and unconvincing. If there was ever a slim hope of convicting him, I had to confront him with the key question: are you the Messiah? Had he said no, he could have walked away. But the simple-minded Galilean openly stated for all to hear that he was the glorious Son of Man. He blasphemed, and for that, he signed his own death warrant. What else could I do? Had you been high priest, would you have done differently?
The fourth station. Jesus is denied by Peter. While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the high priest's maids came along. Seeing Peter warming himself, she looked intently at him and said, "You too were with the Nazarene, Jesus." But he denied it, saying, "I neither know nor understand what you are talking about." So he went out into the outer court. Then the cock crowed. A little later, the bystanders said to Peter once more, "Surely you are one of them, for you too are a Galilean." He began to curse and to swear, "I do not know this man about whom you are talking." And immediately a cock crowed a second time. Then Peter remembered the word that Jesus had said to him. He broke down and wept.
I was in the courtyard that night, a maid working for the high priest Caiaphas. The soldiers whisked a man in through the back door. I told the other servants this must be Jesus of Nazareth. Then I saw a man who was a follower of Jesus. I was sure of it. He huddled near the fire, hypnotized by its flames. I approached him. "No shyness in your bones, missy," my mother used to say. And I straightway asked him, "Are you a follower of that Nazarene, Jesus?" I didn't mean to alarm him, but he became startled at my words, like a horse encountering a snake. "I don't know him," he sputtered. So I walked over to my fellow workers and pointed Peter out. I said loudly, so he could hear me, "Do you remember this man being a part of Jesus' group?" He turned sharply to us and denied it again. Finally, old Tobias, sitting around the fire, smiled at him and said, "Surely you are one of them. You're a Galilean." The man stood up, cursing and swearing. He became so violent, we scattered. But I watched him from a distance. I saw a strange look come over his face when he heard old Ben Rooster crow. It was as though death had called for his soul. Then he turned away and I saw his shoulders rise and fall. If he weren't a man, I'd swear he was crying.
You were with the Nazarene!
I saw you too.
The fifth station. Jesus is judged by Pilate. Now on the occasion of the feast, the governor was accustomed to release to the crowd one prisoner whom they wished. "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus called Messiah?" While he was still seated on the bench, his wife sent him a message. "Have nothing to do with that righteous man. I suffered much in a dream today because of him." When Pilate saw that he was not succeeding at all, but that a riot was breaking out instead, he took water and washed his hands in the sight of the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. Look to it yourselves."
Pilate doesn't like it when I dabble in his affairs. "Leave politics to me. You're my wife. Give your orders to the servants in the kitchen." But this time, I was compelled to speak out. I had dreams about Jesus, frightening dreams, warning dreams, dreams that seemed to come from the gods. So I sent a servant to Pilate to inform him of my dreams. He scoffed at me, saying I should watch the foods I was eating. Since I could tell that he had listened on that faithful day, as I stood by Pilate's side, I saw Jesus there, awaiting my husband's judgment. He stood there with the dignity of a king, despite the cruel crown of thorns. I observed my husband trying to free Jesus, trying to find a way to save him, till he realized that sparing Jesus might mean a revolt by the Jews. One more Jewish complaint to Caesar could have meant my husband's career. I wept quietly as Pilate washed his hands. Somehow I knew that my husband and I would never be the same, that we would be haunted forever by the Nazarene's innocence, his nobility, and his gentleness. I was at Pilate's side on that faithful day, the wife of the man who condemned him. I had haunting dreams that I felt came from God. Have you ever resisted the voice of God?
The sixth station. Jesus is crowned with thorns and scourged. So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas to them, and after he had Jesus scourged, handed him over to be crucified. The soldiers led him away inside the palace, that is, the praetorium, and assembled the whole cohort. They clothed him in purple, and weaving a crown of thorns, placed it on him. They began to salute him with, "Hail, King of the Jews!" and kept striking his head with a reed and spitting upon him. They knelt before him in homage. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple cloak, dressed him in his own clothes.
I was there when the rabbi was handed over to us, to have our fun with him. I'm just an ordinary soldier, not one to get involved with politics. I know how to handle this whip, and I do my duty. I'm not bragging when I say I can turn a person's back into ribbons, red ribbons. When we heard the rumors that Jesus was pretending to be a king, well, we've got some clowns in our outfit who would love to have a little horseplay. We found some branches and wove a crown and threw over a purple cloak over his bleeding shoulders. Then we had our sport with him, kneeling before him like he was our king and hitting him on the head with a stick. Everybody got into the spirit of things, whistling and hooting, shouting, "King of the Jews." It was nothing personal, you understand. It was what we get paid for, making people miserable. Jesus wasn't a bad fellow, really. In fact, he was braver than most. Standing there taking our best shots, he didn't beg for mercy, not once. Well, they took him, made him the king of the hill. They did. The hill of Golgotha, that is. You get my drift?
The seventh station. Jesus is laden with the cross. Now on the occasion of the feast, he used to release to them one prisoner whom they requested. A man called Barabbas was then in prison, along with the rebels who had committed murder in a rebellion. The crowd came forward and began to ask him to do for them as he was accustomed. Pilate answered, "Do you want me to release to you the King of the Jews?" But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release Barabbas for them instead. Pilate again said to them in reply, "Then what do you want me to do with the man you call the King of the Jews?" They shouted again, "Crucify him!" So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas to them and, after he had Jesus scourged, handed him over to be crucified.
Call me Barabbas or whatever name you like. I was part of a rebellion against the Romans that failed miserably. My only success was to kill a few of them before they captured me. Jerusalem knew me. I was a hero in the eyes of many of my people. Now the Romans were going to make an example of me, a leader of zealots. It would be the slow, torturous death of crucifixion in typical Roman style. I was brought before a shouting crowd along with another prisoner, Jesus of Nazareth. Pilate was offering the crowd the choice of freeing Jesus the Nazarene or Barabbas. It was my lucky day. They shouted for my freedom and his death. Frankly, I didn't understand this Jesus of Nazareth. He had no passion, no hatred for the Romans. He acted like a docile sheep when they mocked him or spat in his face. This strange rabbi accepted the cross without a murmur, as if he was predestined to carry it. Well, I shouldn't complain. I became a free man, free to go underground again, awaiting the opportunity to drive the Romans from our land. Yes, I was there when Jesus of Nazareth took my place on the cross. How about you? Were you in the crowd that Friday? Sorry, Jesus.
The eighth station. Jesus is helped by Simon the Cyrenian. They pressed into service a passerby, Simon, a Cyrenian, who was coming in from the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his cross.
For years I had dreamed of making a pilgrimage to Jerusalem for our Passover celebration. I had saved my money to make the journey across the sea from North Africa. When I arrived in Jerusalem, my eyes feasted on a golden splendor of the temple. Then my wife and sons, Rufus and Alexander, went to the market to buy food while I became a pilgrim. Walking the crowded streets, I stopped to observe a pitiful procession of a criminal carrying his cross. Suddenly, before I realized what was happening, a Roman centurion seized me by the arm and forced me to carry this criminal's cross. I was bitter angry. Under my breath, I cursed my rotten luck. Wrong place at the wrong time. All this way from Cyrene, for what? This humiliation. Why did this happen to me, Simon, a poor farmer? Then I saw the face of a man I was helping. He nodded as if to thank me. I will never forget that look. Suddenly, the cross grew lighter, and my heart became lighter too. Later, when my family and I were baptized as Christians, I had a golden memory. I had helped Jesus bear his cross. As it turned out, it wasn't bad luck. It was God's blessing in disguise. My life was changed on that day I lifted his cross. What about you? Were you in the crowd that day?
The ninth station. Jesus meets the women of Jerusalem. A large crowd of people followed Jesus, including many women who mourned and lamented him. Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep instead for yourselves and for your children. For indeed, the days are coming when people will say, 'Blessed are the barren, the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.' At that time, people will say to the mountains, 'Fall upon us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if these things are done when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry?"
I would rather not give my name. Just look upon me as an ordinary Jewish housewife. Together with several other God-fearing women, I did what I could for condemned prisoners. To alleviate their pain on the cross, we were allowed by soldiers to administer a mixture of drugs and wine. Little good it did the poor devils. Weeping for these prisoners was part of the ritual expected of us. Very few, if any, tears were shed besides our own. We rarely knew the prisoners as persons until we met Jesus. He was not like any prisoner we'd ever seen carry a cross. Our leaders had accused him of breaking the law and blaspheming. Others claimed that Jesus traveled about doing good wherever he went. Who am I to judge? An ordinary Jewish woman? It was only when he stumbled in front of us and turned his face towards us that I realized how savagely he had been treated. My tears became genuine. Suddenly, Jesus spoke to us, spoke as if he knew us personally. "Don't weep for me, weep for yourselves and your children." I felt a chill run through my body. His words resounded like a prophecy. I didn't understand what he had done wrong, but I believed he was someone special. Could he have been, please don't mention who said this, could he have been the Messiah? What about you? What do you believe about Jesus?
The 10th station. Jesus is crucified. They brought him to the place of Golgotha, which is translated place of the skull. They gave him wine drugged with myrrh, but he did not take it. Then they crucified him and divided his garments by casting lots for them to see what each should take.
Do you like to gamble? To listen to the click of the dice as you take them? The excitement of gambling races through my blood. That day, as part of our pay, we were given the seamless garment, the robe of the Nazarene. The soldier with me raised his sword to divide the robe, but I stopped him. Wait, aren't you a gambler? Let's throw the dice to see who gets the whole garment. Why spoil a good piece of cloth? And you know what? I won the prize. As I held up my robe in triumph, I looked at Jesus. I heard him say, my God, why have you forsaken me? Jesus wasn't concerned about losing his garment. No, he called out for his God. It was his God that he was clinging to. I watched him as he was dying, and I could have sworn he nodded to me as to say, I'm glad you didn't destroy my robe. My mother made it. Probably all in my imagination, of course, yet I couldn't think of wearing that robe or even selling it. Instead, I gave it back to his mother. It was one of the few remembrances she had of him. I've always been a lucky guy. I was lucky to meet Jesus, even under the cross. Lucky to win his garment, and to meet his mother. Did you see me that day, casting lots under the cross?
The 11th station. Jesus promises his kingdom to the good thief. Now one of the criminals hanging there reviled Jesus, saying, Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us. The other, however, rebuking him, said in reply, Have you no fear of God? For you are subject to the same condemnation. And indeed, we have been condemned justly, for the sentence we received corresponds to our crimes. But this man has done nothing criminal. Then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. He replied to him, Amen, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise.
I was not so fortunate as my prison comrade, Barabbas. No crowd shouted for the release of Dismas. Since my cross was close to that of Jesus of Nazareth, I had a good chance to observe him. The rumor in prison was that Jesus was no thief or murderer. Rather, he was innocent of any crime. Someone even mentioned he claimed to be the Messiah. That's why the other prisoners shouted at him, If you really are the Messiah, do something. Use your power to free us. I told him to keep quiet. I was captivated by Jesus, by his gentle manner, his forgiveness of those who mocked him, but especially by the way he talked to God. He prayed like he knew God and was close to him like a son speaking to his father. Something about Jesus made me examine my life and see it for what it was, a life of deceit, thievery, and murder. Once, when we were hiding in the mountains, a comrade told me about this Jesus and his message of forgiveness, how he ate with public sinners and risked offending the Pharisees, how he promised sinners a mysterious kingdom if they only sought forgiveness. As I looked at Jesus with arms outstretched on the cross, I felt a deep peace, and I was impelled to say, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. I saw Jesus turn his head and say, Today you will be with me in paradise. I was there, and I became a believer. Have you become a believer too?
The 12th station. Jesus speaks to his mother and the disciple. Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary of Magdala. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple there whom he loved, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour the disciple took her into his home.
They called my son a criminal. How could that be? He healed the sick, fed the poor, preached a message of love, yet they called him dangerous and nailed him to a cross. As I watched the soldiers raise him up on a cross, I wondered if they could understand a mother's heart. Can an executioner understand the miracle of a mother carrying a child in her womb for 9 months? When Jesus was only an infant in my arms, Herod's soldiers tried to kill him, forcing Joseph and me to flee to Egypt. So many memories as I look back. Joseph teaching Jesus the carpenter trade, our panic when our son, a mere 12-year-old, was lost in Jerusalem. Joseph's peaceful death as he lay in my arms with Jesus at his side. I recall well the day Jesus put away the carpenter's tools to begin his Father's business. Those words, his Father's business, have echoed in my heart since the time we found Jesus in the temple amid the teachers. Little did I know that his Father's business would lead him to Golgotha. I wonder if even he knew where he was headed. When I saw my son dying, fading like a flickering candle, all that kept me going was faith, a faith in loving, compassionate God. Before Jesus died, he made sure that I was taken care of. He gave me the disciple John the charge of taking me into his home. In a way, John was already like a second son to me. The thought of losing my only son was overwhelming. But I stood there with my sister and Mary Magdalene and the beloved disciple. I felt hopeful even amid the biting pain. I was near the cross on that dark Friday afternoon. Were you there also?
The 13th station. Jesus dies on the cross. At noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And at 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which is translated, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Some of the bystanders who heard it said, "Look, he is calling Elijah." One of them ran, soaked a sponge with wine, put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let us see if Elijah comes to take him down." Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last. When the centurion who stood facing him saw how he breathed his last, he said, "Truly this man was the Son of God."
I was there, a Roman centurion, probably the most disciplined war machine in the world. I was witness to all the events leading to his death. Even now, my guilt haunts me when I remember what we did to Jesus in the courtyard, how we blindfolded him and played vicious games, striking and spitting in his face. I watched the King of Jews as he took up his cross. It was my official role to make sure he died that Friday. He was just another prisoner, another criminal to be crucified with Roman efficiency. But then, I began to study this man. No, he was more than a man. It was his royal, noble manner, his undaunted courage. I had seen hundreds of men face death on the cross. They cursed and screamed. Jesus was different. He had a strange peace about him that went beyond anything I've ever seen. He even forgave the people under the cross who taunted him. In the end, Jesus died like a god, with dignity. Under the cross, I was driven to my knees, driven to recognize him for what he had claimed to be, the Son of God. Within my heart, I felt the first stirring of faith, and I asked Jesus to forgive my cruelty and hardness. I was there when Jesus died on the cross. Were you there? Did you recognize him too?
My God, why have you forsaken me?
Everyone please kneel. Please join us in the Our Father. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Please be seated.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on my
I'd like to thank everyone for coming. For those of you that were wondering, this was live streamed on YouTube and on Facebook as well. So for all of you that want to save it for your kids, it is on there. I'd like to say a special thank you. We have a lot of kids from Catholic schools such as St. John's, St. Joe's, St. Peter's, all the way down Jersey City, and colleges as well that came to do this. Some of our kids made the long 26-hour trek from Disney to come here as well. So I'd like to give them all a nice round of applause. We also have several kids that came back from college as well. And then, of course, I'd like to give a very big thank you to Francesco, who got them ready for all their parts. And some of those really difficult words, he was able to get them through that. So I'd like to give him a very special thank you as well. Lastly, I'd like to thank Monsignor for his continued support for our youth program. So thank you to Monsignor, and have a wonderful Easter. Thank you very much.